All right, we are joined by Ohio State Athletic Director Ross Bjork, Timmy Hall from 97.1 The Fan here as well.
Adam, Ross.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is our. What do you think of the new studio?
I think it's great. It's awesome. Digital platforms,
That's right.
Social channels. I mean, you don't have to necessarily do live radio all the time. This is a great format.
I love it because
thanks for having me on.
It kind of feels like a radio studio.
It does.
I get to wear my headphones. You don't have to wear your headphones.
I got a little thing in my ear here. Yeah,
You can wear jeans.
That's right.
And flip flops where he's got to wear a suit
Absolutely.
because he's the TV guy. Right?
He's got to be ready to jump over and do another thing. You got things happening with the Blue Jackets. It's just all over the place.
Right. That's right. No, good to be on with you guys. Thank you.
Well, let's start. I haven't seen you since down in Dallas. Kind of how have things been? It's been probably, a week and a half now? A lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, that game was, New Year's Eve. It seems like a little while ago. Transfer portal, we all knew was coming, on that Friday. We knew, roster retention was going to be key. You've got the coaching carousel, obviously with Coach Hartline and, all the moving parts, around that piece of it. We've lost some other staff members who have opportunity to be, essentially full-time assistant coaches. So we've had some analysts, depart and things like that. And, so you're just, you're managing all of that. You're leading through that. You're providing support, for Coach Day and the staff. And so it's a new era. There's no question. When you combine, the unlimited free agency along with, NIL and revenue share opportunities, along with the portal being where it's at, you have to just kind of compartmentalize all of it and put it all these different buckets. So that's what we've been doing, and there's a lot of exciting opportunities that lie ahead for our program. We're talking about football in particular. So, but it's been to say that it's not been sort of crazy in the last 13 days. It's an understatement because there's so many moving parts to all of this.
You say moving parts, and I think we can all see it from the outside.
Yeah.
Internally. How does this all? I mean, is it just players going to coaches and saying, "Here's what I think I'm worth"? I mean, we've never been in a world like this.
Yeah.
And then you guys have to all come together and say, "There's only so much money to go around in all of college football."
Yeah. Look, it's all the above.
Yeah.
And look, if you take a step back, so the athletes, the agent, it might be a parent in some situations, whoever it is, there's a conversation. It may start with the position coach. It may start with Mark Pantoni. It may start with Coach Day himself, right? So there's all kinds of different ways, based on the situation that things can get started. But if you really take a step back, we settled a federal lawsuit that described we have a revenue share bucket that's institutional dollars that we can put forward. We're maximizing that. And then if you want to do, and the athlete wants to do third-party NIL opportunities, here's how it has to work. That was defined in a federal lawsuit. So the framework of that is not just the NCAA or the Big Ten or the College Sports Commission saying, hey, we want to do it this way, here's why. Yeah. This is a federal lawsuit. So you're following that pathway. And then you take the sort of combustible nature of the calendar, which if we don't fix that piece, then we're doing our sport a disservice. We can at least fix the calendar. Set the money piece aside. So you take the calendar and all the chaos that creates based on the timing of this, and then you take, okay, here's our plan. And people can criticize, debate what the plan is, etc. But Ohio State has always been built on, we can recruit the best football players out of high school because it's Ohio State. We've always done that, right? And to me, we shouldn't change that because these guys will come on our campus. But the model used to be, hey, you're going to come here and you're going to be behind another 5-star who just came off an All-American season. He's not going to the NFL yet. You know that you're going to wait your turn. Well, the patience of waiting your turn, it's different now.
Yeah.
Now, we retained a lot of our guys, and I think people are missing the fact that 9 out of 11 offensive starters are coming back.
Yeah.
Right?
With one of them going to the NFL, mind you.
Right. Key defensive pieces are coming back. And we signed 28 high school guys. So there's a roster cap now of 105, right? We have 90 scholarships from 85 to 90. So you're dealing with all of that. So the conversations you have to compartmentalize, okay, here's where we are in terms of a settlement. Here's where we are in terms of the calendar and the chaotic nature of that. And then here's our roadmap, here's our plan, what's best for Ohio State football. And that's what Coach Day, that's what Mark Pantoni, all of our assistant coaches have to map out. We like this guy at this position. Let's go. Here we go. We value him. You know what? There might be a depth issue here. We might have too many, you know what, we might need to move on, right? So those are all the things that just create a fluid, environment in this situation.
God, I think there's just so many issues.
How long is this podcast?
Are
we a 3-hour podcast?
Yeah. So okay, one of the parts that you just hit on right there is when you talk about the roster. You mentioned how Ohio State's always going to be able to go and recruit kids out of high school. Au naturel, as I like to call that, the way that it's always been done. And 28 guys are coming in, but you mentioned we're getting to a day where it's going to be hard to convince 4- and 5-star recruits to want to sit and develop, and I think that's the key.
Right.
If you're going to lose the number that you're going to lose after putting all that work and resources into high school recruiting, and I'm sure you and Ryan and Mark Pantoni are thinking about this with the way the rest of college football is going. Do you ever look at maybe in the near future, we're not going to recruit or try to sign 28 guys, but maybe it's more like 10 or 15, and then we up the transfers are starting to come in too. Like we're seeing there's
been a great
Alabama pipeline right now with Ohio State. So they're the farm system for the Buckeyes. That's kind of cool. But that point about au natural recruiting versus more beef in the transfer portal, where's that going?
Yeah, I think the parity word, right? I mean, I think that piece I think still has to kind of settle. Like, where does parity go? Where does parity truly go? If you look at the Final Four playoff teams, right? They hadn't been there. Miami's been there, but the other three, Oregon, played, 2014. I think, obviously they made a run. We're in the playoffs.
How'd that go, Ross?
Last year, it didn't work so well, right? Buckeyes twice. So Oregon had been there, but Ole Miss, right? Yeah. Indiana. So how soon are 28 guys available? We don't know that answer. They were available this year, and we were able to secure their commitment, and all those guys are on campus, and man, they look good. These are some good-looking, young athletes that are on our campus right now. So how long does it take to have that spread out even more? Because other teams, they didn't necessarily go out and recruit that many guys. Maybe they signed 10 to 15 high school kids because they were going heavy in the portal. Penn State, look at Penn State. When that coaching change happened, would they sign one guy on signing day?
Yeah.
And I think they had over 45 leave the program in the portal. And now I think they're up to 30-some that are incoming, right? And a lot of those guys came with Matt Campbell from Iowa State. So the roadmap, I think, for each program is going to look different. So, do you ever shift away from going after the top high school? No, you can't, because they will come here, and we can get those guys. I think it's going to be more of a volume that you're going to have to just manage. And then how do you supplement that with a Caleb Downs, a Quinshawn Junkins, right? Those are going to be the strategies that have to. Honestly, I think some of this
possibly
still has to play out. And that's why, if you look at really the success rate of Coach Day and what he's built here from a culture, leadership, environment standpoint, man, he's got a ton of credibility. And so as he navigates this, with his staff, they decide who goes on the field. I don't decide that. They decide who goes on the field. It's our job.
You didn't make the say on saying as the starter. That wasn't you.
No, they don't want me doing that. I want a fullback. That day's over, right? Our job is to provide the structure and the resources to put them in the best position. In Ohio State, we have the biggest brand. We have the biggest operating budget. We had our best fundraising year. We sell the most amount of sponsorships. We sell the most amount of merchandise in the whole country by a long margin. So our job is to give him the resources to put it all together. And so, to sit here on January 13th and say, this is exactly the plan and this is exactly how it's going to work, nobody knows for sure. So each year, I think you really have to assess, okay, here's the numbers. Here's how many guys we think we could get to sign out of high school. The volume may not be there. Okay, therefore, we're going to go this route on the portal side. So a lot of this stuff, you can't just say it's a cookie cutter model for one program over another. Everybody's going to have their own approach, and everybody's going to have different resources. And for me, we're at the top of the game, in terms of resources, and we're going to stay there. We're going to keep pushing, and look, we need to win championships. That's the expectation. We need to be consistent. That has been what Coach Day has done, and there's still a developmental period of young men, academically, socially, athletically. That piece is not going away. So those are all the things that you want to do as a program.
I'm not going to dive into those other programs and what they may be doing in NIL. But you talked about there's a federal lawsuit. There are rules out there. how do you guys go about sticking to the rules? Because obviously right now you can do whatever you want. Punishment may be 2 years down the line. How do you go about sticking to the rules while also staying competitive when maybe not everybody is?
Right. Yeah, so again, back to the layers of the house case settlement, which have then been codified into NCAA rules, and then we have a new entity called the College Sports Commission that is supposed to be enforcing those rules. That's the part, I think that's the sticky point right now. So within there, if any athlete signs a contract with a third party over $600, that athlete has to report it. And if they don't, they could lose their eligibility. If you arrange something and you did not report it, the head coach, these rules and penalties have been published, the head coach could be suspended for the whole season. There could be termination language. So there's a big jeopardy if you actually violate the rules and don't have the athlete report. If you just say, hey, don't report this athlete, and the athlete makes a post or they make an appearance and there's no contract for that, that athlete could be putting themselves, in jeopardy. And so what we're doing is we have the revenue share bucket. And again, we're going all in. And that's a contract between us and the athlete, the institution. And then we have a very robust third party that all of those deals will be reported. They'll be done the right way. And that's a maximum amount. We have a maximum amount. We're doing very well in the third, because we have great support here. We have people that want to step up. We have great partners in the corporate and the business world. And so the athlete has an obligation to report. The university has an obligation to report. If somebody's just not going to report things, then that goes back to the old sort of model. The brown paper bag, the McDonald's bag, delivering the money to the church.
$100 handshakes.
Look, and maybe people are going back to that world. But everybody in the Power Four said, we agree with the House settlement terms that have these rules and regulations that are in a federal lawsuit, by the way, that we settled on. And we want to abide by these rules. Now, the challenge is the College Sports Commission is not up and running. They don't have enough staff yet. So people are basically saying maybe the rules don't apply, right? We are being aggressive, but we're also doing it the right way. The last I checked, our board of trustees, our university leadership, they expect us to win at a high level, but do it with integrity. And that's what we're going to do. And if people don't like that approach, then I don't really know how to argue with them other than I know this is what it says. I know we're being extremely aggressive in the portal, in the retention, in the money, in the sponsorship, in support from the community. We have an amazing apparatus here, and it's being very well equipped, very well supported. And then Mark Pantoni and Logan Hiddle and Coach Day and all of our staff, we sit down and say, okay, these are the negotiation points that we make, and then the athlete decides, do I want to come there or not? They decide. We can't force anybody. We can't make anybody. Or they say, you know what, I can get more value over here, and we say, okay, great, congratulations.
It's like with any team, right? Yeah. You're gonna have a budget, or you're gonna have an amount that you deem for a certain player.
It's not really like a budget, right? It's fluid, right? It's to say, okay.
I guess with the revenue share it is.
Right. The revenue share is a confined amount. It's the third party environment.
Tell me about that, because a lot of the discussion here lately has been about that third party, a bucket of revenue, and the collective sort of being absorbed into this Learfield pot.
Yeah.
So if you could explain to fans like what the benefit of doing that was. People have had some concern that maybe some other programs are able to just wheel and deal a little bit more.
Just throw $5 million at a lineman and say
throw as much money. But I guess overall, like, are you confident saying Ohio State's overall budget, what they're going to spend on the football team, is top 3, top 5 or so among college football? And what is the Learfield role in that?
Absolutely. If you look at the model that we rolled out last summer, I would say 90% of the Power 4 programs, especially who live at our level, did the exact same thing.
Okay.
Did the exact same thing. Hey, let's have our multimedia partner, Learfield, Playfly, JMI Sports. There's several players in that space. They did the exact same thing. Because collectives were told, you know what, they're not going to be up and running. They're not going to be allowed to do deals. However, that changed in July. So our collectives are up and running. they're able to actually submit deals through the College Sports Commission. Those have been approved. So we are using our collective. The individuals involved in our collectives are still at the table. We have an advisory group. They're still helping us generate resources, whether it's sponsors, whether it's donors. So our collectives are still up and running. Are they interacting directly with the athlete anymore? Not so much, because that's Mark Pantoni's job. That's Logan Hittle's job, right? So that's a little bit of a shift in terms of, because it used to be, when all this started, it was athlete, third party, you guys do what you want.
Okay.
Back in 2021. And then it became
decades ago, it feels like.
You know what? We should bring this a little more closer aligned. So we were able to raise money. We were able to help facilitate, introductions between collectives and athletes. Now, here's the landscape. And again, we're being aggressive in each bucket. So our collective leaders are still involved. That's right. Collective leaders are still involved. The apparatus of those collectives are still up and running, and there's some things we can deploy through there that all get reported. And again, we're being aggressive in all those spaces. So the fact that we brought everything in-house, no, we created better alignment between all the parties, sponsors, donors, collectives, LLCs that are still up and running, nonprofits that are still up and running, the people that, from Brian Schottenstein to Cardell Jones to, Ideen, all of them, they're still involved, right? Mark Stetson, they're still involved, right? So, and we're maximizing, what we can do in that space.
All right, last question on NIL here, and I'll kind of give you the floor. When you came here, you knew you were going to be leading an ever-changing world of college athletics. That was really one of the reasons Gene Smith wanted you to be the guy. What are you most frustrated with? Is there anything to where you just sit there and you're like, this is where we have to solve this in the NIL world, in the transfer portal world?
Yeah. How much time do we have?
Yeah.
It really, there's a lot of history that you study, I think, when you're in these roles. If you actually go back to the very first intercollegiate athletic event in 1852, there was a railroad baron who gave out money and prizes and gave money to athletes. It was a rowing race, Harvard and Yale. So you had commercial activity and money. And then later it was found out that the athletes on those teams were non-students. They were hired to try to win the race. There's a report, it's called the Fullington Report here at Ohio State.
We've been doing this since the beginning,
in the 1950s, Ohio State got in a little trouble. They had some athletes that had jobs, but they were not showing up for those jobs, but they still got the money, had an NCAA matter. And there was a report that came out in 1958, and it said, you know what, it's high time that athletes should be paid some of the money that they help generate, right? And then we know all the different iterations of, money under the table and all these kind of things. And look, I was in the SEC, and I went through an infractions case at Ole Miss. So any time and every time that we've governed the money and the benefits and we restrict the environment, we catch ourselves really in an antitrust environment. We didn't adapt to NIL. We didn't adapt to technology. We didn't adapt to a video game looking like Ed O'Bannon. Wait a second, that looks like me on that. Oh, wait a second, I should get an attorney and I should sue.
Boy, did that become something.
We didn't adapt to, people making money on YouTube. I think the kicker at Central Florida 15 years ago was making money on YouTube, and bam, he's ineligible. You can't do that. You can't have your. So the point is, we never adapted, and so now what we're trying to do again is we're trying to restrict the money. And when you restrict the money, you cause people to do things that are against the rules. You cause people to maybe go underground or off the books or wire things directly and it'll never show up. We're hearing all kinds of stories, right? So the money, the frustrating part is we cannot govern the money any longer. And so when we settled the House case, the 22%, which ended up equaling $20 million, that number was settled 3 years ago. The market went way beyond 22%. So the House case settlement did not keep up with the market quick enough because we had collectives, because we had front loading, we had this era last summer. So in some ways, we need to maybe overcorrect the house case settlement in terms of the money piece.
I never thought that it was enough, right from the beginning. I mean, if you look at professional sports, and people pointed that out too. I mean, when you have a collectively bargained league, you typically have a 51 to 49% split, and that's a major amount of money compared to what's being shared with some of these top collegiate athletes these days. And people, just naturally don't like it. Is that another thing you deal with a lot with fans? They just don't like this. The idea of paying that much, but that's the way it's going.
Yeah, I think people understand it now. Again, they may not like it. They may say it's never going to be the same, but the games have never been, despite all the chaos, and there's more chaos than just NIL that we've been dealing with, the games have never been more popular. Our attendance was up again this year. The TV viewership is up, right? So back to your original, the frustrating thing is we can't get our arms around the money piece, and we can't govern that piece because we'll probably end up back in a courtroom. And we all thought the house case settlement was going to capture enough of the upside. We were all worried about how are we going to pay for $20.5 million? Well, now we're trying to create third party, and we have here, to go way above that.
Yeah.
So we have a soft cap, essentially. So to me, we've got to really look at, can we truly govern the money anymore? And should we worry about that? Should we just make it an open market? And I don't know where this podcast will go, so I'm sharing this for the first time. And then on the structural pieces, here's the things we can do. And this is where we might need federal legislation, is we can make sure that this is still about academics, have academic rules. We can do our calendar a lot better. We can probably categorize employment in some manner around these athletes and, get some federal oversight from that standpoint. We need to make sure that we're protected from not being in the courtroom every single time we make a rule. We could probably have some recruiting structure. We could probably get that codified through Congress. But anytime we try to codify the money, it leads to this. It leads to chaos. It leads to angst. It leads to, do we have enough? Do we not have enough? And so-and-so's doing this over here, and how come we're not doing this? And so to me, that's the place that I'm in as we go into 2026, is how do we look at the benefits and the money that we're giving to these athletes, and how do we then codify the structure of our system of the things that will keep it? We keep talking about eligibility rules. There's all these lawsuits, 6 years of eligibility, 7 years. I'm in favor of let's have 5 years to play 5 years. We should just have that rule.
I like that. I've always liked that.
We should push that forward.
What's the reason for a red shirt if you just want to play it anyway?
Exactly. And so, but again, you may need codified protection. So you're not in a courtroom, so somebody's not asking for 8, so they can play 8 years or 7 years, right? So
Again, it's a good point. Everything is just another lawsuit. Every single year, it's 8 different people taking a lawsuit, and at some point you throw your hands up and say, this can't happen.
We have to look at how do we codify the money that we give to the athletes around revenue sharing and all this upside that we can create, and then how do we codify the structure? So those are the things that hopefully we can get to. Hopefully, leadership of our commissioners. Ted Carter is on the NCAA Board of Governors. So we have seats at the table here at Ohio State. But the more you step back and really look at this, and look, we're going to figure this out. We're Ohio State. We're always on the leading edge, and we're going to be fine. We're going to have a great football roster. We got a great head coach. We got great, continuity in lots of ways. But governance-wise, the money piece complicates all of this, and then it leads to chaos. And we're dealing with that when you combine the unlimited transfer world where they can transfer every year. So a lot to that, but
made a lot of sense.
To your original question, the framework, we thought we had it. We all signed up for it. We thought we had it in the house case. The market eclipsed the house case almost overnight. And now I think we need another moment of adapting.
Well, you go back real quick to the $13 million. Just remember when that was the craziest thing in the world. It was going to cost $13 million to build a championship roster.
I remember when that number got thrown out by Coach Day, right? Everybody's like, oh my gosh, can you believe that, right?
$13 million.
And here we are today. And so, again, the market, right? Yeah. Let the market be the market, and let's see what happens. Yeah.
Ross, I want to add men's basketball into the discussion here.
Right.
And I feel a lot of angst from the fan base.
Right.
I know you can't snap your fingers in the middle of the season and the team's a tournament team. It's 3 years, possibly going on 4. And when we talk about, Ohio State, the brand power, the budget that we're dealing with, how you're telling us there's not an issue like with the money, like with Learfield controlling it, the collectives can go and do things. Ohio State's in a good place there. How important is it to you and the administration to have rock solid performances, and not just, obviously Ohio State's always going to be the football school, but you look at the men's basketball numbers, there's some historic numbers with Final Four appearances and what has been done and what can be done. Where do you stand on that? Where that program has to always live at?
Yeah, the same things I mentioned earlier, right? Hey, we want to win championships or at least be in the mix, right? And then if you get in the tournament, you at least have a chance to make a run. You know, we want to be consistent. And I think what we're seeing this year is we're just not as consistent as we need to be. You know, unfortunately, 2 years in a row, our roster, we don't have a clean roster. We got guys in and out, you know, and we're dealing with that now, you know, with Brandon and, you know, hopefully Christoph will be back by this weekend. But so having consistency on the roster has been a challenge, you know, with Coach. Coach is doing a great job. His energy, his connectivity in the recruiting world. You know, look, we signed an unbelievable player, right, in Anthony Thompson, right? We got another commitment in the next class. We're doing really well, but resources, right? We need to continue to find more, and we're giving basketball, you know, as much as we can. We need to have a great atmosphere in the Schottenstein Center. And right now, again, back to the consistency, we're not consistent there, right? So those are all the things that we're working on. We're working with Coach on a constant basis because we want to be competitive. That's important. We're good in a lot of sports. Wrestling's ranked number 2. Women's ice hockey ranked number 2. Men's tennis is in the top 10. We have a lot of competitive breadth in our program, and we want basketball. Women's basketball obviously had a big upset. You know, they're going to be top 15. We need men's basketball to get there, and we need to keep building those pieces, you know, to be in a competitive spot.
Does the resource have to grow for men's?
You know,
it just have to be
again,
better than it is now?
That's the part that's fluid. I'm seeing reports now that the SEC may give all their rev share bucket, that $20 million, all to football. So again, all of this is kind of fluid around basketball. You know, I think we have a pretty sizable number in the rev share bucket, but I also hear what Kentucky's doing. I also hear what North Carolina did, which means they sacrifice football. So all of those pieces. So if we have to build out more third-party opportunities, we got to do that, and we have, and we have produced a lot.
Right.
I mean, Jake had a lot of resources this year.
Yeah.
But then you gotta hit, right? You got to make those guys stick, and so we got to get production off the bench. You got to build depth. You know, those are all the things that we just got to continue to work on. And Jake is doing it.
If I was going to win the Mega Millions, I was going to put almost all of it into men's basketball. I was going to look for some kind of naming rights deal out of that, but
write it down.
Most of it I was going to put into hoops.
The next Mark Cuban, right?
That's
there,
right there.
I mean, if it was like, you know, it was what were we at? Like almost $1 billion?
Yeah.
Billion too? I was going to take 100 million of it and play around.
But you're right. Look, we can be more consistent, and we can be on the dance floor, and we know that. We know we got the capability. We know we got the history. Again, it all goes back to talent acquisition and recruiting. And I think we have a great staff, right? And so we got to keep working.
The fans are just dying to have it back. They're
I look at Nebraska. I think a couple years ago, I think they wanted to run off Fred Hoiberg, and now they're undefeated.
That
right?
leads
and so, but you look at their team; they're an older team, right? And so, look at Indiana and Miami going into this game. I think they have at least 8 or more starters that have. This is their 5th college football season. Miami and Indiana playing. You know, so older.
Their average age is like
24. Is winning in college basketball and in football. So. Again, back to strategy. Those are all the things that you have to hone in on.
That kind of leads me to my next question with you talk about Fred Hoiberg. And I feel like the biggest thing in any coaching, not college, anywhere, it's if we lose, you got to fire the coach. You got to fire you got to get rid of how do we get away from that mindset? Because the NFL is there every single year. Right. And, you know, fans, obviously there's a level of you know, extremism with your anger in a fan base, but how do you get from just saying the only solution can be to fire the coach and start it all over again?
I don't know. I don't know how you change that. You know, look, you want passionate people. You want high expectations. You know, I think the secret sauce here at Ohio State is how do you embrace those expectations, but also don't get paralyzed by that where you can't execute, where you're just, you know, frozen. And so you always have to embrace it, but, you know, you can't also blow in the wind. you also can't say, well, one day it's really, really bad, and then the next day it's really, really good, and then the next day it's bad. You can't go back and forth. And so if you believe in your structure, you believe in the people, you believe in the leadership, sometimes you got to ride some things out. And sometimes you got to have a lot more patience, even though that's hard, even though you may have to dip a little bit before you build back up. All those things can play into it. And so that's the hard part, but that's what makes fans what they are. They are fans for a reason. They provide energy for a reason. They're with you, right? We get it. And then they can be frustrated. Like we're frustrated in lots of ways, right? We know, are we going to win every game? We're going to try. And that's the expectation. But if we stub our toe, we're not just going to quit, and walk away. And it's easy not to say anything, and it's easy to kind of bury your head. And so we want to be proactive. We want to be positive. We want to showcase what Ohio State is made of. So that piece of it, I don't know if you ever can change it.
Yeah.
All you can do is you have to have the wherewithal and the patience and the understanding that if you got the right leadership, make sure you believe in it.
All right. My only other thing.
Thank you,
a
Ross.
lot there.
Thank you for taking the time. That was great.
Absolutely.
Jersey patches was the only other thing I wanted to say.
Yeah.
You can't ask for all this money to have the best talent in the world and then get mad at somebody wanting to try to raise a little extra money.
Who's mad about a jersey patch?
Oh, Timmy,
Are you getting hit up for that?
Yeah, the people, the tradition and the excellence. I love the
Victoria's Secret. Let's go.
idea. Yeah. You know who you need to call?
Yeah.
And I'll put it here first.
Okay.
LeBron James.
Okay.
Tell him you'll put his logo on his shirt.
Okay.
Give, $100 million and
All right. Who owns that logo? Nike or LeBron? I wonder.
It's okay. You do that work.
LeBron's got to own that, right?
I would imagine.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah.
See, this is why I'm on television and you're an athletic director.
We can call LeBron. we can ask him. But no, look, again, back to everything we're talking about, right? How do we generate more? And Ohio State's the biggest brand. And so, yes, we are talking to people in the market. The rule, actually, as we said here on Tuesday, the rule at the NCAA convention there are still some rules that still live with the NCAA. Jersey patch is one of them. May get passed this week. We anticipate it getting passed, I think, Wednesday or Thursday. And then hopefully we can talk to the right people. And again, be smart about it. But it has to maximize the value of who we are at Ohio State. If it happens to be somebody like that,
oh no, I got the perfect
listen,
one. Scott's on the jersey, grass on the field.
Oh, there you go.
The shoe.
There you go.
There we go.
And they can help replace it.
Perfect deal.
Every time we do a concert, they can help replace the grass.
There
we go.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. Right. We'll roll it out.
I like
just
it.
like at Glendale. Roll it back.
I like it.
I thought you had the perfect pitch of 10 TV 97.1 The Fan. But all right, we'll leave it at LeBron or Scott.
We can. We can talk to Mr. Regala.
There you go. That's
that.
right.
Yeah, there you go.
He is Ross Bjork. Thank you so much for taking all the time diving into it. That was amazing stuff. Keep it on 10 TV, 10 TV Plus, and 97.1 The Fan for all the best Buckeye coverage.